Hi, I'm Margaret and I'm here with Dr. Adam Hartley, Superintendent of Fenton Area Public Schools.
Good morning.
So we're going to talk a little bit about block scheduling and the transition. So what kind of changes are we going to see this upcoming year, and what prompted these changes to happen?
So school districts, including Fenton Area Public Schools, have seen this dramatic rise in the cost of running a school district and the cost and the various things that it goes into running a school district, and the amount of revenue declining. So what happens is your savings account, so to speak, which is our fund balance, you start taking from that. And over the last decade, it has depleted drastically. And so 2 years ago, our savings account, so to speak, was actually less than 1%, which means that the state of Michigan came in and said, okay, we have laws that state that school districts cannot go below 5%, because it's very dangerous. If you start deficit spending in the red, so to speak, then that could mean grave consequences for school districts. So when I started last July, the school district had already started kind of restructuring things. So if you recall, there were layoffs 2 years ago. And so laying, I think it was 11 teachers off to cut those costs down helped. At the same time, what happened is when you lay teachers off, class sizes go up. And that's certainly something that we don't want our class sizes to be big. You know, the less students you have in a classroom, the teachers can focus more on the individual student and so on. So righting that ship, so to speak, is a long-term plan. And so part of that is we had to look at what is it costing us to run the school district, and if we're taking from our savings account, then there's dire consequences for that. So we've looked at a lot of things. We've cut costs in a lot of areas that certainly haven't been on the forefront or the surface, so students don't feel that those cuts, and we haven't cut programs, and because that's very important. Our first and foremost goal is not to impact teaching and learning, and to make sure our students have every opportunity they have to learn. But it just, looking at that, it became overwhelmingly clear that the block schedule and that staffing model is very, very expensive. And the fact that we are a base foundation district, and what that means is back in 1994, the state of Michigan changed the way school districts were funded. So we receive $7,500 some per student, and there's no way to generate any more revenue to go beyond that. Before 1994, we could go out, we could ask the community for a millage to help offset those costs. By law, we cannot do that. So we're a minimum-based district, yet we're one of the very few districts that are actually paying out a staffing model that we simply can't afford. We're actually, by moving to a 6-day period and away from a block schedule, we're saving $1 million a year by doing that. And so I'll be the first one to tell you, it was not an easy decision by any means, but looking at the trends the last decade and how our fund balance have depleted, and then looking into the future, you know, I think of first graders, second graders, when they're your age, how can we make sure that Fenton Area Public Schools is strong financially and academically, and that's the long answer of why we looked at this transition.
Oh, thank you so much. So as far as communication goes, what can we expect from that, and what can we expect from information being sent home?
Sure, and communication is key, and that's something, when this transition the teacher contract was voted on a couple weeks ago, and I wanted to make sure that the community knew right when it happened, because I know block scheduling and SRT and things that are near and dear to our students and staff and families' heart. Anytime there's that change, communication is key. So that letter went out at 8 o'clock right after the board meeting, And in that letter, it stated that by December 1st, we will know the details of what next year looks like. So we're still working through, okay, we're transitioning off this intensive staffing structure to this less expensive model, but what can we do to retain, for instance, there's an advisory period built in. We don't know what that looks like right now as far as, is it every day, is it twice a week, 3 times a week, how long it is. But we're working with the teachers to make sure that we're retaining some of those main points of pride we had within SRT and how can we still deliver those opportunities. So from now till December 1st, I plan on myself, the building administrators, any ways to communicate to our school community on those changes, whether it's maybe another interview with you, posting on our social media pages, a letter home. We want to make sure we communicate those changes throughout the process. And then by December, before you schedule, well, not you, you're a senior, but by underclassmen are ready to schedule their classes, they'll know exactly what that new schedule looks like.
And as for the transition, how are we gonna, what are the steps that we're going to take to transition from our block scheduling to our 6-hour day?
Great question. So I met with Mr. Sachowski and Mrs. Sasowski because this impacts middle school and high school next year. We met last week, and we are going to start talking with people. So Mr. Sachowski, made it a point that he wants, which absolutely I agree with, he wants the student body to have a voice. He wants to talk with students, just as we're going to talk with staff, just as we're going to be talking with families, on what are some of those non-negotiable type stuff. So again, I'll go back to the advisory period. Transitioning away from the block, SRT as we know it won't be in existence. However, we still want social and emotional learning to take place. We want high school students to have, make sure that they know at least one adult in this school that cares about them, that can, be there to mentor and what have you. So Mr. Sachowski and Mrs. Sasowski will be working with the staff, working with the students to really glean that information of what are some things that are non-negotiables that we want to make sure that are in that advisory period. The other process is looking at our graduation requirements, because transitioning away from that 8 block schedule, but minus the SRT, you're taking 7 classes right now. In the future, it will be 6 classes. So what does that look like with graduation requirements? Those are things that I need to take in front of the school board that need to be looked upon. Fortunately for us, we have many school districts that are on a 6-hour day. And so we've already started looking at models that we see ourselves maybe going to. And of course, we'll Fentonize it, so to speak. But we can look at other districts that have moved away from the block. There's a lot of districts that started this transition 5-10 years ago because they simply couldn't afford it. So I've already called a couple superintendents that have been around and said, tell me what that transition looked like, and we can learn from other districts that have gone through this process.
Okay, cool. So I know it sounds pretty concrete right now, but a lot of parents and students have said that they've heard that the decision isn't final yet, but is there any chance that it may not happen or may happen earlier, if that?
We are transitioning next year. It won't be before. We would never do that to our students, to our teachers. To transition mid-year would be make that change even harder. But we're not. It is final. We are transitioning next year, and so I just encourage everybody to continue to work together and understand that it's not going to be easy. I can tell you, no one's happy about it. I put my parent hat on, and I absolutely love block scheduling and SRT. My own child has benefited from that. I put my superintendent hat on. It's a very tough decision that the teachers had to work through, the administrators had to work through, and ultimately the Board of Education had to work through. But we did it to really to put us in a position where we're that much stronger in years to come. So we are transitioning in the fall of 2018. And we're going to be working very hard to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible.
Awesome. And finally, where can students and families go to find more information about this?
So with that said, as we work through this transition, our first meeting is next week with the teacher group. It's a collaborative effort. And we're going to be meeting periodically to finalize that schedule. And so when our new website goes up, which is going to be very soon, there's actually going to be a page on our new website that's dedicated for this transition. So parents, students can go right to that web page. It may be, a video of you interviewing me. It may be a letter that is sent out by Mr. Sachowski or Mrs. Siselsky. It may be a letter. It may be a Facebook post that directly ties into this transition. We'll have those links on that page, so we are as transparent as possible.
Well, that sounds awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Hartley.
Thank you for grilling me. I appreciate it.